So a while back, I was trying to make some coasters with an epoxy river running down the middle of it. And I had these little 4" by 4" molds that I bought really cheap off Amazon. And I put my wood in there, I put the epoxy in there. I was super excited to make these awesome coasters that I was sure would sell amazingly well. And I had a problem. So it was super frustrating. And so for a while I was like, I'm just not gonna ever try to make epoxy coasters ever again. But I found a solution that makes creating epoxy coasters super easy. You will want to check this out. It's gonna be a fun build. Let's go. So now we have the board at the correct length where it just fits super nicely without forcing it into the mold. It just fits nicely into the Crafted Elements mold here. Now what I'm gonna do is take out whatever material I want to be filled with epoxy. I'm not gonna take out too much material here because I don't want to use more epoxy than I have to. I'm probably gonna start by taking out about 3/4 of an inch. So now that we have these oak strips cut down to the length and width that we want them, we can check and make sure we like the way that this looks, and I really do. This will be, I think, a nice ratio of epoxy to lumber. Keep in mind that we might do, in fact we definitely will, trim up the sides, so you're gonna lose a little bit of lumber on the outside. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're visualizing what you want your coasters to look like. So here's an overview of what we're about to do. I'm going to spray the mold with this mold release. This is super important when you're using the Crafted Elements molds. This will extend the life of your mold, so you can use it over and over and over. So we'll be sure to apply this, then we're going to drop in our lumber. We're also going to have our epoxy mixed up over here. We're going to mix up the 2-part epoxy from Total Boat, and we're going to go ahead and add the dye. Once we have all that mixed up, we'll do the epoxy pour. Then we'll pop all the bubbles with a blowtorch. So that's a quick overview. I'm gonna walk you through this step by step, but I just want you to know kind of where we're going. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start mixing up the thick set epoxy resin from Total Boat. This is a 2-part epoxy. If you are going to take on this project and want to use this product, which I would highly recommend, there's a discount code in the description. So you can just click on that link. It takes you right to this exact product, and you'll automatically, I think, save 5% on your purchase, which is super nice. I'm also going to use these Total Boat mixing cups. This is a 3-to-1 epoxy, so we'll use the 3-to-1 meter. Basically, I'll fill it up part A to 2 and then part B to 2 because that's the amount that I think I need. So just always think left to right, part A, part B, so you can go 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. That will make sure that your ratio is correct. All right, we have part A in. We filled it up to the line that says 2. So now we're going to add part B and fill it to the B line that says 2. The B line. It's kind of funny. And now we just want to mix this up really well. All right, now I'm going to add some dye from Black Diamond Pigments. This is the Bora Bora Blue, and I think this is going to look really sweet with the lighter color of the oak. I'm going to go ahead and prepare this mold to drop the wood in. Make sure that your mold is clean before you spray in the mold release. Also make sure, I've already shaken this, but make sure you have this shaken really well, kind of like a spray paint bottle. Make sure you have all of the surfaces covered with that mold release. Throw these boards in. Now I can go ahead and pour in our epoxy. I'm going to take my blowtorch and really quickly just pop all of the bubbles that are kind of at the surface of the epoxy. I'm gonna come back in about an hour as well, and probably more bubbles will be coming to the surface. So I'll pop all these bubbles again, and that'll give it that nice glassy look. Oh, I almost forgot. Add weight to the top of your boards right after your epoxy pour, and this will keep the boards from floating up and letting the epoxy seep under the board, which will just lead to a waste of epoxy. All right, let's go ahead and take our coaster blank out of the mold. What in the world? Nice thing about these Crafted Elements molds, we'll pull this, we've pulled out the coaster blank, and after washing this with soap and water, it's ready for the next epoxy pour. So up next, we're going to go ahead and plane this down. You can kind of see there's a lip. There's, the wood is thicker than the epoxy pour. So we're gonna plane all this down. We're gonna make sure to plane from both sides because we do have some bubbles here at the bottom, and we'll go ahead and take all that as well out. So plane on both sides. And once again, this is the reason why we used a long mold instead of like little 5-inch square molds, because this will run through the planer much easier than a little wooden block would. In fact, really, you'd have to make a jig using double-sided tape, and it's just not as safe. So this is a safer, more efficient way to batch out epoxy coasters. Now that I've got these coasters trimmed up, they're 4 3/4 square. I think the bigger coaster is nice since, water bottles like Owalas or Hydro Flasks are getting more and more popular. So yeah, these are a little bit bigger. They're about a 1/2 inch thick, which is nice because it kind of lets some of the light through the epoxy, which I think is just a super, super cool touch. Before we move on to finish these epoxy coasters, if you have liked this video, if it's been helpful for you, I would really appreciate it if you could help me out and hit the like button. And if you want to stick around for future videos, subscribe. I would love to have you kind of join me on my woodworking journey. Subscribing is totally free for you. And yeah, I'd just love to have you join the journey. Let's go ahead and finish up these coasters. Right here, I'm putting a very slight round over edge on all of these coasters, top and bottom. I like round over with blue epoxy because it kind of gives it that gradual waterfall look on the edge. All right, so we have just finished up sanding all of these coasters. I didn't really record footage of it. Sanding is my least favorite thing, so I was just trying to get through it. I'm sorry. But what I did was I did 180, 220, and 320 on these coasters, and they feel amazing. For the finish on these coasters, I'm gonna do a little cutting board butter. This is just beeswax and mineral oil that's been cooked in a crock pot and then poured into little cans. So I use it to finish a lot of my cutting boards. But it's a nice natural looking finish for coasters. It cures basically instantly. I've said this before, but actually if you sell your work, a really cool thing to do if you were selling these at craft shows is to take your coaster to the craft show unfinished, and then when someone says, hey, I'll buy these 5 coasters or whatever, you apply the cutting board butter to the coaster right in front of them. It's a cool experience. They can really see it pop, and you're probably pretty likely to sell some cutting board butter as well. But anyways, with all that being said, let's go ahead and finish these coasters.